North America, most people know it as Canada, the United States, and Mexico, roughly. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And when thinking of its landscapes, Yellowstone National Park with the geysers and the bison, or Banff with the Rocky Mountains, or the Great Plains where a lot of the good old classic westerns were filmed. But most people don't know how truly diverse North America is. It's made up of over 11 different biomes. So let's take a look and see what those biomes are from smallest to largest. Typically, North America extends as far south as Panama, but nature doesn't follow the boundaries we made up. This video will look at the Nearctic realm, which is the roughest form of a natural border that can be found. The line separating the Nearctic realm and the Neotropical realm is rough, but it follows where the North versus South American influences are most clearly split, mostly along the tropical rainforests which start to occur in Central America. 14% of the world's land area is found here in the Nearctic realm, with Canada, the United States, and northern Mexico making up the majority. And just for the purposes of this video, I'll be using the terms Nearctic and North America interchangeably. In terms of the world's 14 biomes, North America has no entire ecoregions of tropical rainforest or montane grasslands. There are, however, stretches of mangroves covering the southwest of Florida that merge with the Everglades, as well as small patches along the west coast of Mexico. Just outside the top 10 spot is the flooded grasslands of North America at number 11, which you must include because they are, of course, the iconic Everglades. Covering 20,000 square kilometers of southern Florida, this area is well known. The subtropical climate is hot and humid, with annual rainfall reaching up to 150 centimeters. Lake Okeechobee to Florida Bay is not steep, losing roughly 3 centimeters of elevation per horizontal kilometer, and it creates a 100-kilometer wide river that moves less than 1 kilometer a day. Much of the Everglades is sawgrass marsh, typically staying flooded for 9 months out of the year. There are deeper, slow-moving channels of water, or sloughs, and are flooded about 11 months out of the year. There are hardwood hammocks or stands of trees covering 4 to 40,000 square meters, occurring just above the normal water level, made up of oaks, limbo, and palm trees. Cypress swamps are found throughout, their buttressed trunks helping them thrive in the flooded forests. And the rarest ecosystem in the Everglades are small pockets of slash pine. The largest area remaining is inside the Everglades National Park, with about 80 square kilometers of these forests. Speaking of Everglades National Park, it protects 20% of the original Everglades and also has the largest mangrove system in the Western Hemisphere. It contains the most significant breeding grounds for tropical wading birds in North America and also protects 36 threatened species, such as the Florida panther, the West Indian manatee, and the American crocodile, which is different than the American alligator, which is much more common. The tropical, and in this case subtropical, dry forest biome is found in southern Sonora, Mexico, off the Gulf of California. The Sonoran Sinaloan subtropical dry forests are a transition between the deserts of the north and the dry forest to the south. It is a semi-arid area covered in deciduous thorn forests of acacia trees and many cacti species, with the cacti being most obvious during the dry season because they join the canopy, with the torch cacti getting up to 16 meters tall. Almost impenetrable, the thorny scrubs, epiphytes, and vines give the forest a dense, tangled feel, and these forests range from sea level up to 2,000 meters of elevation in the Sierra Madres, with cliffs and deep canyons crisscrossing the region. It's hot here, with minimal rain during the fall and winter, with a spring dry season where the trees lose their leaves, and then a lot of rain falling during the summer, being very humid from July to September. A rare plant found here is the arborescent morning glory, which can grow 2 to 3 meters in a year, and its winter flowers provide nectar for the long-tongued bats that migrate through the region. A beautiful bird almost endemic to the region is the black-throated magpie jay. Tropical, and in this case subtropical grasslands, aren't at the top of the mind when thinking of North America, or Texas for that matter, but that is where this region, the Western Gulf coastal grasslands, is located. The biggest reason for the lack of awareness is that there's hardly any of the region left. Less than 1% remains in pristine condition, much of it now converted to cropland, grazing land, or urban areas. Taking a look at Houston, the climate, it's hot and humid, and it cools off slightly in the winter, but receives year-round rain. And the grasses of these prairies are diverse, with blue stem species being the most common, and it has many rivers flowing through, which in turn supports riparian forests. The Atwater's prairie chicken is found here, which is a very endangered subspecies of the great prairie chicken. Their population, once as high as 1 million in 1900, fell to just 12 wild birds in 2016 due to habitat loss, and has now risen to about just under 100. Most notably, this area has beaches and intertidal lagoons, which are represented well by the Padre Island National Seashore, which protects 530 square kilometers and 110 kilometers of beach. This is the longest undeveloped barrier island in the world, with dunes, beaches, and marshes. It also occurs along the path of the Central Flyway, so 45% of North America's bird species have been spotted here, and then this is the breeding area of 5 to 10% of the world's population of redheads, least terns, piping plovers, reddish egrets, and peregrine falcons, making it a globally important bird area. The Gulf Coast beaches are one of the only places in the world where the smallest and rarest of the sea turtles nest, Kemp's Ridley. They reach 75 centimeters long and up to 50 kilograms, and a new record of 383 nests was found at Padre Island in 2025. As well, the tallest bird in North America, up to 1.6 meters tall, the critically endangered whooping crane, winters in these grasslands. Its population was down to 20 birds in 1940, but is now just above 600. Mediterranean forests and scrub cover the coast of California and northern Baja, Mexico. A narrow strip of land between the coast and mountains receives much of its precipitation in the winters when it's cool and has dry, hot summers. Much of the region is chaparral, adapted to natural, infrequent fires, because lightning's not common here, and the natural fire systems every 30 to 100 years, with many of the plants having woody shrubs with thick, small leaves. When mature, the landscape is nearly impenetrable with the thickets, but then after a fire burns through, the first rains bring many, many flowers. 4 main zones occur here: coastal, interior, mountain, and the Santa Lucia Montane. Being hilly, the elevation varies from sea level to 3,500 meters of elevation, creating many different plant and ecosystem communities. This range of elevation and the proximity to the coast also creates lots of variation in temperatures and climates. Coastal grasslands, coastal sage scrub, and chaparral are the most common habitat types, but there are oak and pine forests as well, and cacti and succulents are common. Snakes and lizards are abundant, and the area has some of the largest amount of endemic land mammals in all of North America, such as 3 species of kangaroo rats thriving in the shrubs. This is also part of the endangered California condor's range. They're huge vultures with 3-meter wingspans, and they weigh up to 12 kilograms. They went extinct in the wild in 1987, but have now rebounded to about 250 wild birds. Pinnacles National Park protects 100 square kilometers of chaparral and hosts some of the highest densities of prairie falcons in North America, and was found to have more bees per area than anywhere else on Earth, with 450 species. But these bees are interesting because they're solitary bees. The Channel Islands are home to an endemic fox, the island fox, which is small and isolated from its mainland counterparts, and has rebounded from a population low of under 200 in the year 2000 to over 8,000 foxes today. Even though just 1% of the Nearctic is covered in tropical coniferous forests, this area contains over 40% of the world's extent of this biome. Often found in higher elevations of the tropics with moderate rainfall, it's found in north-central Mexico up to the border with the US. A very small chunk is also found on the Bermuda Islands, 1,000 kilometers east off the coast of North Carolina. Historically, much of the islands were covered by the Bermuda cedar, with understories of ferns, and along the coast, mangrove forests were common. The Bermuda petrel, believed to have been extinct in the 1620s, was rediscovered breeding here 300 years later in the 1950s, and the population has now risen to 100 birds. In Mexico, These forests are found on the ocean-facing sides of the Sierra Madre Occidental and Oriental Mountains. Found from elevations of roughly 1,000 to 3,000 meters, they receive much of their rain during the summer. Especially in the north, the forests are found as sky islands separated by desert valleys. They are made up of pine-oak mixes, with the Apache pine, pinyon pine, and Engelmann oak being common tree species. The Occidental Range has over 27 pine species, and the Oriental Range has Mexico's highest diversity of oaks with over 55 species, 19 of which are endemic. Black bears, pumas, peccaries, white-tailed deer, and jaguars call the area home, and endemic birds include the ornate tufted jay, eared quetzal, rune-fronted parrot, and thick-billed parrot. The world's largest woodpecker, which hasn't been seen since 1956 and is widely thought to be extinct, the imperial woodpecker, called this region home. There are many, many salamanders here too, the mountains creating pockets of endemism with over 40 endemic species. And finally, this is an important area for the migration of the monarch butterflies. Of the region is protected within one park, Cumbres de Monterrey National Park, which is notable for its intense peaks. Temperate coniferous forests cover just 10% of North America, but have over 50% of the world's extent of these forests. They span from the southern coast of Alaska along the Canadian mountain ranges to the mountains of Southern California, Arizona, and Colorado. There are even areas of these forests found in northern Texas and Louisiana, and as far east as New Jersey. The forests found around New Jersey are the Atlantic coastal pine barrens, with poor sandy soils, warm summers, chilly winters, and frequent rain, supporting forests of pitch pine, with a thick shrub understory of over 20 berry species. The Pinelands National Reserve protects populations of the pine barrens tree frog. To the south is the Piney Woods, with forests of loblolly pines and post oaks. Wetlands and pine savannas are common as well. The Big Thicket protects 480 square kilometers of the remaining forest, and many animals are found here. Particularly high is turtle diversity, with over 15 species. The rest of the temperate conifers are typically found on the Pacific coast and in the mountains. The other 22 ecoregions are very diverse. Much of the area is mountainous. The summers are often short, with long snowy winters, dominated by spruce and cedar forests that contain many iconic mountain species, such as the grizzly bear, black bear, gray wolves, elk, bighorn sheep, and mountain goats. Banff National Park in Canada and Rocky Mountain National Park are great examples of how much of the region looks. Some notable ecoregions include the isolated sky islands of Nevada, which have the Great Basin bristlecone pines, the oldest trees in the world, with the oldest recorded at over 4,000 years old. The Great Bear Rainforest in coastal BC has a very wet, humid winter, and the forest is full of mosses and lichens, and is home to the spirit bears, where 1 in 10 bears have a white coat, but they're not albino. There are the fog-dominated redwood forests of California, with some of the largest trees on Earth, over 100 meters tall and 9 meters in diameter. Then, the surprisingly mild climate on the south of Alaska has large forests remaining under the shadow of giant glaciers, the oceans being rich with many seabirds and some of the largest populations of sea otters. Central BC hosts the Okanagan Dry Forest, which is a unique desert grassland conifer forest mix in the rain shadow of the coast mountains, where you can find rattlesnakes and scorpions in Canada. Finally, the Klamath-Siskiyou forests are the most diverse conifer forests in the world, with over 30 species of conifers found here. Deserts and arid shrublands cover 10% of North America. These include the main 4 deserts, the Chihuahuan, Sonoran, Mojave, and the Great Basin deserts, whereas the shrublands include much of the arid regions of Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, to name a few. The deserts are hot during the day and cold during the night, with very short wet seasons, and are often quite dry for the remainder of the year. Much of the deserts are on the interior of the continent, in mountain rain shadows, or in the case of the Sonoran, in a high-pressure system that pushes moisture away. The deserts and scrublands have many grasses, cacti, scrub, sagebrush, yuccas, and agave species, with some of the largest cacti in the world, such as the saguaro. Some animal representatives are the coyotes, greater roadrunners, desert cottontails, scaled quail, greater sage grouse, nine-banded armadillo, colored peccary, Mexican prairie dog, reticulate collared lizard, Texas spiny lizard, and the western diamondback rattlesnake. According to the WWF, the biggest of the North American deserts, the Chihuahuan, may be the most biologically diverse desert in the world. The Colorado Plateau ecoregion has some of the most iconic landscapes on Earth, such as Arches and Canyonlands National Park. Last year, I was fortunate enough to travel to Zion and Bryce Canyon National Parks, and they truly feel like you're in another world. The black-footed ferret, which went extinct in the wild in 1979, calls sagebrush steppe and desert grasslands home, and is most common in the Wyoming Basin shrub steppe. And the Mojave is home to both Death Valley, where the hottest temperature recorded on Earth was 57 Celsius in 1913, and is also the driest area in North America. The Mojave is also home to the Joshua tree, a very iconic yucca species. Temperate broadleaf forests cover an eighth of North America along the eastern part of the continent. Much of the region is hilly, such as along the Appalachians and Ozarks, but some flatter lowland forests also exist along the Mississippi River Basin. Temperatures are typically warm in the summer, and winters are often much colder. In the northern half of this region, much of the forest turns shades of beautiful reds and oranges during autumn, before the leaves fall, and the forests are blanketed by snow during the winter, a large contrast between the seasons. Sugar maple, red oak, American beech, and eastern hemlock are common trees, as well as white and red pines. Historically, American chestnut trees were very common, but a blight devastated almost 3 to 4 billion trees in the early 1900s, and it is now a critically endangered plant. In Appalachia specifically, there is some of the highest temperate forest diversity globally, with over 150 tree species, with just a single site having over 30. To the south of the range, grassland and forest mosaics were very common due to fires. Early traders reporting prairies as wide as 40 kilometers across, with large herds of bison, and the oak savannas in particular are sadly now rare. In the northern half of the range, spruce trees are more common, as the forests are Conifer broadleaf mix, where they start to transition into the Boreal Forests. Along the Mississippi River, the forests are seasonally flooded, with cypress forests being predominant, with extensive cane breaks of American cane, which is a grass similar to bamboo that reaches up to 10 meters tall. But not much of this once massive forest remains, just patches. Due to this, it's thought that the ivory-billed woodpecker is extinct, especially since it hasn't been seen in the area since 1944. There are extensive caves throughout much of Appalachia, making it a refuge for many cave-dwelling endemic species, with the Mammoth Cave systems having over 650 kilometers of cave passages surveyed. Great Smoky Mountains National Park protects 2,100 square kilometers of the southern region, roughly a quarter of these forests predating European settlement, and hosting over 1,500 species of flowering plants and 120 birds, such as the red-eyed vireo, the eastern screech owl, and the tufted titmouse. And this is the salamander capital of the world, with 31 species, the red-cheeked salamander being endemic, and the eastern red-spotted newt being eye-catching. The red wolf, which is roughly in the middle of the size between a gray wolf and coyote, is critically endangered. It was once found across this region, but are now isolated to North Carolina, where there are about 15 wild wolves remaining. Temperate grasslands cover 17% of North America, with 1/3 of the world's total of this biome found here. So no wonder they are often called the Great Plains. Before we focus on the Great Plains themselves, however, there are a few scattered pockets of grasslands and savannas in other areas. California's Central Valley, the Palouse Prairies, and the Willamette Valley all support diverse grasslands and savannas, but are now almost entirely modified to agriculture, with just the smallest pockets remaining. Then, the southeast coast also had their own conifer savanna forest mix, with common lightning strike fires opening up the forest for grasslands, with the longleaf pine dominating the tree species, and these were typically spaced at around 30 meters, letting a lot of light hit the understory and making it that open grassland savanna. The Venus flytrap is native to this area, found in the wild on the east coast, but sadly the same story applies. Roughly 2 to 5% of the grasslands and savannas remain, with agriculture and urban sprawl affecting the area. As well, due to fire suppression, most of the remaining protected areas are not savannas but conifer forests, such as the Apalachicola National Forest. Now, for the Great Plains themselves. From Texas to Alberta, a span of over 3,000 kilometers, and east to west over 1,000 kilometers, they are truly great. Covering such a large span, there is a lot of variation among the grasslands themselves, with 13 different ecoregions and as low precipitation being so far inland. Summers are hot, winters are cold and open, which let the winds whip across the landscape. Starting in the north, in the ecoregion I call home, the Aspen Parkland, this is a transition from the Boreal Forests of the north into the prairies. It's a mosaic of prairies and aspen groves. Heading south, there are shortgrass prairies, with a short growing season limiting the growth of the native grasses. To the extreme southwest is more and more arid, transitioning into mountain forests or desert scrub. The east side of the plains, where precipitation is higher, the grasses grow tall, almost 1 to 3 meters in height, and have over 200 plant species found per square kilometer. Some areas of note include Nebraska, having the largest sand dune complex in the Western Hemisphere, and 500,000 sandhill cranes breed in the Platte River every single year, making for an incredible sight. Grasslands National Park protects 900 square kilometers of undisturbed shortgrass prairie and has some of the most northerly population of the black-tailed prairie dogs, which are large rodents that may have, before habitat loss, have been the most abundant prairie dog species in North America. The largest ever prairie dog town found covered 64,000 kilometers in Texas and may have been home to over 400 million animals. The most iconic species of the prairies is by far, of course, the American bison. With an estimated 60 million animals prior to Europeans, they would constantly be on the move, grazing on the plentiful grasses. And in the 1880s, overhunting almost drove them extinct, with just 100 bison remaining, split into 5 herds, and they have since rebounded to over 500,000 animals, with the largest wild herd at 6,000 in Yellowstone. Tundra covers 1/5 of North America and has over 1/2 of the world's extent, and is made up of 18 different ecoregions. This is the true north, along the coast of the Arctic Ocean, Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. Being so far north, the winters are long and very dark, sometimes not receiving sun for weeks, and very, very cold. Precipitation is almost always snow. The summers are mild, and the sun's intensity is low, but will stay in the sky for weeks at a time. 3 big chunks exist. First, there's coastal Greenland. With 80% of Greenland covered by an ice sheet, only the coast is this tundra biome, with most of the southern region being dwarf scrub heath, and in the sheltered fjords there are forests of white birch, most trees not exceeding 2 meters in height. The north of Greenland is the most northernly ice-free land in the world, with sparse vegetation for much of the region. The climate here looks brutal. The world's largest national park, Northeast Greenland National Park, protects just shy of 1 million square kilometers and has a total of 9 mammal species, all of which are found in the other tundra areas: polar bears, Arctic hare, ermine, Arctic fox, Arctic wolf, the collared lemming, caribou, and the musk ox. Heading west, we have the Canadian tundra, which is a huge region that is considerably colder and the more bare to the north, and transitions into the taiga to the south. Permafrost, which is frozen soil, tends to be continuous and can be a few hundred meters deep. Vegetation is mostly sparse, lichens, herbs, and shrubs, with grasses and sedge along streams and lakes. Some additional mammals venture into this Canadian range, including brown bears, Arctic ground squirrels, and wolverines. Year-round, the snowy owl and common raven call the tundra home. Lesser snow geese breed up here, and are becoming so populated that they're becoming a problem. With over 5 million of the birds breeding here in the Arctic, a threefold increase in numbers in the last 50 years. Torngat Mountains National Park is a rare place where black bears and polar bears coexist, with these bears being some of the only tundra-dwelling black bears. Then, Alaska has the third chunk of tundra, being more dynamic and mountainous with alpine tundra in the interior as well. The highest point in North America, Mount Denali, at 6,190 meters is found here, along with many, many glaciers and some of the highest density of Dall sheep. The Beringia lowland to the east is dominated by wetlands and grasses and is a globally important bird area with huge populations of Arctic loon, tundra swan, emperor geese. The Bristol Bay Walrus Islands have massive hollouts, with a record 14,000 animals being counted in a single day. Boreal forests make up a quarter of North America, which is almost as large as the deserts and grasslands combined. They are a 500 to 1,000 kilometer thick stretch of conifer forests that stretch almost 6,000 kilometers across Canada and Alaska. Dominated by conifers, they have long freezing winters and short summers. The region is moderately hilly in the east to mountainous in the west, and it is spotted with many, many lakes, which were carved out by the glaciers. A lot of the areas on the Canadian Shield, which is Precambrian rock, 4.3 billion years old, combined with the glaciation, makes the soil very shallow, and the exposed rock is very frequent. Common trees include black spruce, tamarack, jack pine, and white spruce. Bogs and peatlands are abundant, with the largest continuous wetland in the world covering a quarter of Ontario, with millions of migratory birds nesting here: snow geese, Canadian geese, and the king eider, to name a few. In Labrador, there are the remains of the George River caribou herd, now roughly 8,000 animals, but in the early 90s, this was the world's largest migratory herd at 800,000 animals. Wood Buffalo National Park is the second largest national park in the world, protecting 45,000 square kilometers in northern Alberta. It has one of the world's largest freshwater deltas, the Peace Athabasca Delta, covering 3,000 square kilometers, and one of the biggest assemblies of large mammals in North America, with moose, wolves, wolverine, lynx, grizzlies, black bears, cougars, and wood bison all found here. The bison are wood plains bison hybrids with a rough population of over 2,000 wild animals. It contains the only natural nesting site for the endangered whooping crane and has the most northerly population of red-sided garter snakes. Finally, the world's largest beaver dam, at almost a kilometer long, was spotted here from space. Some iconic birds of the boreal forests are spruce grouse, the great gray owl. There are not really any amphibians except for the wood frog, which can freeze over winter and thaw to continue thriving in the spring. Some iconic locations include the canyons of Nahanni National Park and the mountain backdrop of Wrangell Elias National Park. The world's largest waterfowl breeds in the latter. With a wingspan up to 3 meters and a weight of up to 12 kilograms, the trumpeter swans were thought to be almost extinct in the 1930s, until a population of over 2,000 birds was found in this park. Speaking of large animals, Kodiaks. Kodiak Island is in this biome and is home to 3,000 plus giant grizzlies. These ones weigh up to 600 kilograms and stand over 3 meters tall on their hind legs. The boreal forest can kind of seem boring at first. They just look like an expanse of monoculture trees, but dive a little deeper and the earth has some amazing things hidden in this massive expanse of wilderness. North America is so diverse in its landscapes, from the flooded grasslands, the tropical dry forests, the tropical grasslands, the Mediterranean forests and scrub, tropical coniferous forests, the temperate coniferous forests, deserts, temperate broadleaf forests, temperate grasslands, the tundra, and finally the boreal forests. There are 11 different biomes and over 100 ecoregions making up this continent. As always, thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned something new about the biomes of North America. Until next time.